Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second Kingston City School District SRO Public Forum for tonight. So we're going to begin with a slideshow presentation which basically lays down the ground rules for the forum and also gives us a brief history of the SRO program. Okay, we need everyone to please observe these guidelines. One, when it's your turn, please step up to the microphone and read your statement. The microphone will be sanitized between speakers. All statements are limited to 4 minutes. Please remember, all personal attacks or statements that have been proven false will silence your mic and end your speaking time. The Kingston City School District SRO Committee is here to listen to all statements given by the Kingston City School District community and will endeavor to incorporate all comments into its final recommendations. For all our guests, this is a speaking forum. For the School Board SRO Committee, this is a listening forum. Even if you ask a question, the SRO Committee will not respond in a back and forth to give all of our speakers time to speak. Following the speakers, or now in between the speakers, Ms. Sierra will be reading a number of written statements members of the public sent in. They will also be limited to 4 minutes. Concerns about community policing are important to all of us, but not the purpose of this forum. Your comments have to pertain specifically to the school district's SRO program. Also, following this forum, the district will post an online form, an online form that anyone can use to inform the SRO committee of their suggestions or concerns about the SRO program. And now a brief overview of the role of the SRO. The SRO, first of all, serves as a liaison between the school and the police departments of Kingston and Ulster. The SRO is involved in student mediation. The SRO is involved in is a visual and emotional presence in our schools. The SRO is involved in safety planning and resource support. The SRO provides emotional support for our troubled students. The SRO provides information and help with cyberbullying. And the SRO is a member of our school safety team. The SRO can also provide emergency and safety support when requested by a school administrator. The SRO cannot participate in discipline. And we're ready now for public comment time. So if we're ready for our first.
How far down did I get here? Does anyone remember who the first person was? I think it was Molly, right? Right. Yeah. Where we had it? I'm going to move this microphone right over here.
Yeah, okay.
It makes a loud bang, I apologize. I'm scared of teacher.
Oh, and if I didn't say so, thank you all for coming. We really need to know what you think. So thank you so much for coming.
And thank you for holding this forum tonight. I hope we, okay.
Just lean into the mic a little. There you go.
When I speak quickly, this is 4 minutes. I'm going to try not to rush so that it's comprehensible, but I won't go too slow.
Thank you much.
So I have a statement and then a suggestion as requested. I am the mother of a 6th grader at Bailey, and I am a teacher for the neighboring Ontario Central School District. In these different roles, I can see both sides of the SRO debate. As a biracial young man, my son identifies as Black. Through his eyes, I can see how SROs in schools are not acceptable. As a teacher in a district with a beloved SRO, who is an integral part of our community, I can see how SROs in schools are a wonderful bridge between the police and the community. However, as I have delved deeper into the Morningside social and emotional learning and equity curriculum we are trained in at Montiora, it is clear that we as a KCSD community need to work toward schools that do not utilize the police department as part of our in-school programming. The white majority in Kingston must have empathy for the experiences of the minority in our community. This is a long process. It's not a one decision. In order to help create or begin to develop empathy, we must read resources that help explain this reality to those of us who don't exist in it. I have an excerpt from We Came to Learn, a call for police-free schools that was published by the Advancement Project and the Alliance for Educational Justice. For many Black and brown youth, the presence of police in their schools disrupts their learning environments. There is a culture clash that exists between law enforcement and the learning environment. Police enforce criminal laws, while schools are supposed to nurture students. Additionally, there is an antagonistic relationship between communities of color and law enforcement, which negatively impacts the school environment. As a result, students of color often do not feel safe with police patrolling their schools. While the general public may feel that stationing police in schools ensures the safety of children and youth, it may in fact destabilize that sense of security for Black and brown youth. It's a great resource full of a lot of research by many groups. Suggestion. As we head into the 2021-22 school year with a newly renewed contract for the SRO program with little to no adjustment to the Memorandum of Understanding, I have a recommendation to help begin heal the rift in our community surrounding this issue. The SROs and their program need to be integrated into our school system with deliberate authenticity. We must start on day one of school in September with a school climate initiative that includes all officers that work in any of our buildings. Here is one example of the first step that can be taken toward this, or one way of doing a school climate initiative. This one is taken from Learning for Justice resource, Toolkit for a False Sense of Security. So the example is to draft a survey that is first given to staff, personnel in the buildings, to gauge the perception of the school climate as perceived by the staff regarding SROs. Questions could be, at what points of your workday do you encounter police officers on campus? What locations do students typically encounter police officers? Have you ever called on police officers to help handle a disciplinary matter? Do your colleagues call on police officers to handle disciplinary matters? Are you aware of the types of trainings that police who work in your school district receive annually? It's a long list of questions that you can ask staff, and then adjust the questions, ask students. We must reflect on surveys like this and take action. Clearly, there's extensive work to do in our district that I truly believe begins with training of all staff. Many ways to do it, maybe use some of our new money for it. We must do the work and have the brave, difficult conversations necessary to move our community toward a deeper understanding of the culture and climate that SROs create in our schools for all of our students, teachers, and staff.
Well done, exactly 4 minutes. Thank you, Molly.
Okay, I believe next is Jean Jacobs.
Good evening. My name is Jean Jacobs. I I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Catalino, like our principal here of the KHS, Mr. Schweitzer, and the rest of our community, Mr. DeFico. I'm here, I could not attend the last one, but I will speak to a few of the areas that I spoke to with regard to the history of the SAVE legislation. And Mr. LaShawn Parker, Coordinator of Prevention and Safety, is the gentleman, or is the one that is currently here within our school district, carrying out this program for the last 21 years. So, my name is Jean Jacobs. I am a lifelong resident. I have 4 children that graduated from the high school, one in 83, one in 85, one in 2000, and one in 2003. I graduated from here as well, and my parents, Jim and Jean Wells. So we have a long history here. I am here this evening in support of the SROs. I helped develop the program back in 1999 and 2000 when I was on the Kingston City School Board, and then I did become president of the school board after that. We worked diligently to put a plan together in the schools. It was difficult. It was an extraordinary amount of work, but it was worth it because the goal was if we can save one child since the Columbine incident, April 19th of 1999, that was the goal, okay? And they have kept that promise to the school district and to all the school districts in New York State, because the SAFE legislation is in fact, was implemented for all school districts in New York State. So I am here tonight in support of it because I have followed it diligently for 21 years. While my children were here, I continued to educate myself because without a safe school, you do not have a school. We can stand here tonight, but if people just took the time to read Mr. LaShawn Parker's coordinator of the prevention and everything that is in place, you can't even imagine. The SROs are a portion of it, but it goes much further. If there's an incident, a shooter, everyone in this prevention knows exactly what position they take, and that's critically important for the life of a child. So, I'm here tonight in support, as I just said. In the 2 decades since Columbine, there have been 240 more school shootings. And as a result of this, last year, since the death of course, the untimely death.
1 minute.
Okay, that's fine. What better way in a time of uncertainty to forge together and create a partnership by implementing this opportunity with our SROs? Let's reinvent education and make the SROs a part of it. Instead of dividing us, bring us together. This is what we're all about, ladies and gentlemen. And I firmly believe our community can do that, and also our school community, recognizing that every child needs to go out the door in the morning and go to a safe learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you.
Right.
Once again, right on time. Thank you.
Next up will be Malia.
I may ask a question before my time starts.
Sure.
I recognize a few of you. I don't know, are all of you on SRO committee? Could you please?
That is a really good question, and I'm sorry to the committee once again for not giving us a chance in this forum to introduce ourselves. So why don't we start from right and go all the way to left, because a number of us are masked, so you don't know who we are. So thank you.
Hi there, Vince Sisico, principal of Kingston High School, and I am on the SRO committee as well. Paul Palio, superintendent.
Jim Shaughnessy, school board member.
Val Dwyer, SRO committee.
Mr.
I'm
Spot.
sorry, I didn't hear. Who are you?
Val Dwyer.
What was your identifying?
She's a member of the committee.
I'm a member of
Are you a member of the community or a parent?
parent, spouse of the teacher, member of the community.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Spicer, Chair of the committee.
Hi, Burke, Coordinator of Prevention and Safety, Kingston City Schools, and member of the committee.
Nora Shearer, member of the committee, and board trustee.
And
We do have two members of the committee who aren't here.
Oh, okay.
Ashley Knox, who's a community member and a community, a parent and community member, and Robin Jacobowitz, who's a board member, parent and community.
Okay, thanks. And was it open to anybody to join? Like, did you volunteer to join it, or did you specifically ask like certain community members to join?
Actually, everybody on the committee was asked, even board members were asked, would you like to serve on the committee? And then the community members were also asked to join the committee.
Can other people request to join?
Well, the committee work is almost at a conclusion. We have this public forum and then possibly another forum, but then we begin trying to resolve contractual issues. So I would say at this stage of the game, with all the data that the entire committee has gone through and the work that's gone through, it would be too difficult, I think, for somebody to catch up at this point. But thank you for asking.
Okay. Let me know when to start.
You ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
Okay. So I'm a parent of two students in the district. So in all of the comments that I've heard in support of SROs, whether from parents, community members, teachers, the mayor, or even the chief of police, all seem to be praising the presence of an adult with the freedom to wander the halls and connect emotionally and personally with students. Yet, I have heard no reason why someone fulfilling the role of emotional and social support for students must be an armed police officer. I have seen and heard no evidence that SROs are essential to our schools. Furthermore, I do not understand how the district and the police can claim that the presence of armed law enforcement officers in our schools can be separated from discipline and from the criminal justice system. The purpose of police is enforcing laws. They're called law enforcement officers. It's also to bring people into the carceral system. So there's much to say about this, but I don't have the time for it today. And we know that there are many things that the district must do to more deeply educate the school community, including the administration, on the SRO program and its impact on students. So here are some first steps that I think the district should take regarding the SRO program. So first, conduct a school climate survey of students, teachers, and staff. This survey should be created in coordination with Rise Up Kingston, Citizen Action, and the KCSD Committee on Equity and Education. Another step that the district should take is to have more SRO forums, town halls, info sessions, whatever you want to call them. These events should implement the following points. So 1, some of these, including the next one, should be done virtually in order to accommodate those who cannot attend a 5 p.m. in-person event for whatever reason. Be it pandemic, being afraid to be here in person, having kids and not having childcare, having to work, or whatever. Any in-person events should also be live streamed and able to handle virtual participants. Events should also include Spanish translation, and any event promotion should also be made available to the community in Spanish. Events should also be held regularly, perhaps monthly, culminating in a final community discussion prior to next year's SRO contract renewal. In addition, a third point that these events should include is we should provide a basic Q&A session on SROs, because I think a lot of people have no clue what they are. That's maybe one reason why participation has been kind of low in these events. So here's what you would talk about in the Q&A session. 1, exactly what SROs can and cannot do at the schools. What their job description includes, like the specific points, rather than like an overview. What is considered legal and illegal for them to do. How the oversight and governance structures work with regards to SROs. Details about the type of training that SROs receive as both regular police officers, and full explanations of what SRO specific training that they receive, like for this position. Do they receive training on adolescents or what? I have no idea. The Q&A session should also include information on how the hiring process works and who is involved. Additionally, it should include what avenues parents have to complain about an SRO's actions. To what agency should a parent submit any complaints? The police, the school, and in addition, the district's SROs should be available to answer community questions at these Q&A sessions. And finally, Kingston City School District should work with Rise Up Kingston, Citizen Action, and the KCSD Committee on Equity and Education to arrange for speakers familiar with other local school districts that have undergone the removal of armed police from their schools. And also bring in presenters who can talk about the different options available to school districts and communities. So it's not all or nothing. There are lots of different options in between. So I believe these are topics that should be covered in events following this Q&A session.
Thank you, Malia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up will be Jolie Dunham.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I'm Jolie Dunham, and I'm a resident of Lake Katrine, where my grandson is now a second grade student at Crosby Elementary School. In 2001, I was a member of the Board of Education and worked intensely on the SAVE legislation requirements in addressing the concerns of safety in the district, most especially in the high school at that time. There was a time, believe it or not, when we did not have locking doors on this building, and we had evidence of students actually being beaten during gang initiations during school hours. I remember that very well as a board member, which was very difficult to deal with. So, as a board member, I was very involved with Ms. Jason in drafting the state's very first zero tolerance for bullying policy, which the board, we worked through with the lawyers. We were one of the first in the state, and I was the person who helped draft that initial document. As a lifelong educator, and I'm a high school teacher in Dutchess County, I see on a daily basis the necessity as well as the advantages of having a school resource officer in educational communities. I totally understand what other speakers have said here, how other people may perceive that and not be comfortable with that. But I come before the board tonight for the first time in almost 15 years speaking in front of you to encourage you to keep the SROs in the Kingston School District now and in the future. School resource officers are trained for this position, and those of you who are involved in this know the specificity of their training in dealing with the school population. One of their main purposes, and no one has mentioned this yet tonight, is to form relationships and connections to our students. I teach in Dutchess County at Arlington High School. We have SROs there. These connections and relationships that I actually see them make with students can be a life-saving event for individual students and for the school community as a whole. There are students I know personally who have confided in our school SRO with serious issues at home so that the officer can be there for them and direct them to help. There are students in our school building who have tipped off our SRO about impending violence so that they can intervene. School resource officers and security officers often hear about issues or brewing problems within a school building because of the connection they form to the students. So really good and worthy SRO is he's connecting to the kids in the hallway. He's connecting to students, or she's connecting to students, so that those students know that they are there, not so that they're the law, so that they can connect to students and do exactly what their title says, be a resource. In the event of a lockdown, such as we experienced at Arlington High School last year, it was a 3-hour terrifying lockdown. Our SRO was already on the scene and directing the beginning events involved in a really frightening time in our school district. Before the officers came in with their guns drawn each room to make sure there was no shooter. It was pretty terrifying, but we all knew that those school resource officers in our building were on the scene and they were essential, and they would be the first line of defense if there was ever a real shooter in our midst. We have a very different city and state right now than we had in 2001 when I first worked on this process with the SAVE legislation. So I think having SROs and even security officers in schools are something that is a necessity in this day and age. I really highly recommend without reservation that the district keep the SROs as part of the New York State safe legislation. The police are not our enemy here. There's no division. And they are our connection to a healthier future and community in our schools. So, you know, we need, as Jean had mentioned, we need to come together on this, taking into account what everybody's feeling and people not feeling as comfortable with them and addressing those concerns. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I will tell you, Arlington High School has had a wonderful, all the security officers in our school, they make connections to our students. The SROs are there as a line of defense for us if we really need them in the event of an emergency. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next up will be Jessica Alonso.
Hello, my name is
Jessica.
Jessica. Oh, hi. I'm so nervous. Okay.
You'll be fine.
My name is Jessica. I graduated from Kingston High School 2 years ago, 2019. I have a brother who's graduating this year. And I live in Kingston, so I'm a resident. And I just wanted to get up here because I feel like you all are like especially considering the voices in this room specifically, even though there are tons of voices out there. But, congrats. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to get up here quickly and say that I don't think that SRO should be in the high school or in any school for that matter. I have never heard of a student tell me that an SRO has had a positive experience for them. In fact, I've actually seen SROs get involved in situations that I feel like ended up being traumatic for the student or just worsen the entire situation in general. I know my brother had an experience, last year I think, when he was having, he has an IEP and he was having a behavioral episode and they called up an SRO and they handcuffed him and used a very aggressive, unnecessary force on him and they ended up taking him to a hospital. I think that affected him very super badly. He ended up like having a seizure from some medication that they gave him, had bruises on his wrist, things like that. But yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that SROs also contribute to the school to prison pipeline by I don't know, I feel like when you're young and you see police all around you, especially in your schools, where it's supposed to be like a learning environment, really safe and comfortable, it gets you used to just seeing them and having encounters with them, and that's what you're gonna get used to and things like that. And honestly, I just feel like there are too many troubled kids in Kingston for, I don't know, SROs to even be around, and like, I just think that they make situations worse, and they can be very threatening to young people especially. I know I definitely felt, I never looked up to an SRO when I was in school, but yeah, what's it? Oh yeah, I think that the money could be used, could be used to go towards like more guidance counselors. I know this year especially, there's only like 2 guidance counselors per year, and that is just not enough. And I know from firsthand experience, as well as as well as my brother's experience, that they pick and choose who they want to show more attention to, and it's just not enough. There needs to be more guidance counselors. And also, I think the money could be used to go towards more training for the current security guards, and maybe have some just more comprehensive training for them, de-escalation and things like that. But yeah, I guess that's kind of the gist of what I wanted to say. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. Okay, bye.
Thank you for coming, Jessica. Thank you.
Next up will be Casey Wimbush.
Hello, hi, my name is Casey Wimbish. I'm a resident of Midtown Kingston. I have a son in 5th grade, and I work with a lot of high school students from Kingston High School through my job at the Kingston YMCA Farm Project. And I just want to say a couple things about my son, and then I want to read some letters from high school students that were written in regards to SROs. So I have a 5th grader. He started at Bailey this year. He has grown up in this era where shootings, police killings, all that kind of thing are heavily in the news and in the media. So he has a very healthy fear of guns and consequently police officers. He will cross the street to get away from a police officer. And when he went from like the cozy confines of elementary school to Bailey and there was an armed police officer in the school, he was horrified. And that is very discomforting for him personally. And he has total white body privilege that is going to protect him from police officers. His chances of having a negative interaction with an SRO or a police officer are very low because of his white body privilege and the protection that that gives him. And I understand for many other people, non-white children, children of color, they do not have that privilege and that protection, and their fear is very, very different than my son's fear. I feel like that SROs, there's going to be fights. There were fights in my junior high and high school, and then we did not have cops, but there's always young people fight. And SROs are not doing anything to get to the root of the problem of that. And I feel like we need, instead of putting resources into police and aggressive responses, we need to put resources into supporting our young people. And we have all, as a society, gone through this collective trauma of a year of coronavirus, and kids especially who have been cut off from their social life and the supportive place of school. We need to put as many supports in place to get them through this and to help them process and deal with all of the feelings that are a normal part of adolescence and that are just exacerbated by what has gone on. And I see many other proactive ways of doing that that would be more advantageous than police officers. And now I'm switching over, and I'm just going to read some excerpts of some letters. These were submitted to the Board of Education, but I just wanted these to be able to be heard by a larger audience. This is from a student who is a senior this year, and she says, I'm going to be straightforward. I strongly believe SROs need to be removed from our schools. Some of that money could also bring in more counselors. If we had more counselors, students would not act out and cause trouble because they would actually have someone to talk to. Now you are lucky if you get a chance to talk to a counselor because they are always busy. We do not have enough. This past school year, a Kingston High School student took his life. It's extremely heartbreaking to think that if he had someone to talk to, he might not have felt like he had to do that. Going to the guidance now, you always feel like a bother because they are always so busy. And from another student who is a current 10th grader at the high school, he says, the issue with SROs is that they act way more aggressive in a situation when the problem is not that serious. This can also be a racial issue as well. Students of color are being harassed, punched in the face, and slammed into the walls when they have not committed a crime. SROs are being, okay, that's about the budget. SROs should be out of of the school, stopping real crime, and not harassing students for being late to class. And then he also has some suggestions for how that money could instead be used to fund more counselors, more teachers, better food quality, funding arts, and way more.
Casey?
Yes, am I up? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Pat Pelopano.
Hello. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Great. My name is Pat Valcano. I'm a resident of Kingston, really active in my community.
Pat,
Yes.
because of your mask, just
Come
lean
closer.
into the mic a little better.
Here we go. Check, check, 1, 2.
Now much better. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read this little bit that I wrote. As a Kingston resident, I'm concerned for the young minds being molded in the presence of the hands of officers by the criminal injustice system. At this point, there is enough data out there that categorically shows that the presence of SROs negatively affects our most vulnerable students in this country. That being Black, brown, indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ+, disabled, and neurodivergent students, and by and large neither protects from nor prevents school shootings. It is our obligation as adults to help kids navigate the gray areas in life without wanton cruelty and zip-tie handcuffs, but with active listening and strong guidance. Our students need services and after-school programs, as well as greater access to increased mental health services not connected to the carceral system, to help process life as a young person in a world made chaotic by adults. To quote a report from the ACLU, data shows that the presence of school-based mental health providers not only improves outcomes for students, but can also improve overall school safety. By contrast, there is no evidence that increased police presence in schools improves school safety. Indeed, in many cases, it causes harm. Oopsies, I've done something with my phone. If you're one of the people that think, oh, that doesn't happen here, our officers are nice, it has nothing to do with the candor of the individual officers. Abuse from SROs has happened here, and unfortunately, the reality is that it will likely happen again. Officers are not mental health professionals, nor should they be, and their ultimate job is to enforce laws that are often racist, ableist, sexist, and classist. My suggestion is that the KCSD cancels the KPD contract and put the $369,000 spent on SROs towards mental health services not connected to the carceral system, as well as activities and services for our youth. While we know the root causes of student health and well-being are multifaceted, we should seize the opportunity to positively affect this one area in their lives that we have some control over, and help keep schools a place of safety, learning, and growth, and not a pipeline of punishment under the gaze of the law. Thank you.
Annie Castillo.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Anayatsen Castillo. I go by Ani. I am here today to insist that thousands and thousands of dollars spent on school resource officers be relocated towards student success and towards a more equitable school district. To be quite frank, I have never really felt any more safe in school just because there are people with guns roaming the hallways. I mean, if anything, Black and brown students at KHS and at the middle schools probably feel more threatened than protected, because that's what SROs are there for, right? To protect students, or at least the ones that aren't marginalized. Take a second to think about how it must feel like to be a student of color, a student who is undocumented or who has undocumented parents or is undocumented themselves, a student whose family members have had unpleasant encounters with cops. Think about how it must feel like to see these people with badges and guns who have so much more power over you in your schools. I mean, are SROs even adequately trained to be in our schools? Are they trained to handle situations where a student is angry or upset due to complications in their home or social life? Are SROs trained to be anti-racist, or do they just follow the systemic racism embedded in our school system and target students of color, therefore increasing the school-to-prison pipeline? I ask you to invest in us. Invest in our mental health and our future. Invest in our success. On the Kingston City School District website, it states all students all the time, so focus on that. Understand that all students in this district come from different backgrounds. All students learn differently. Some need more help than others. Some are targeted more than others. The class of 2020 had over 400 students and only 2 counselors. I've been a student in this district since 2nd grade, and if I remember correctly, I've only had 2 teachers of color, and I believe one of them was a substitute teacher. Understand that not all students can afford to bring their lunch to school, so they're stuck eating cafeteria food, which does not taste good. Understand that not all students learn by sitting behind a desk, staring at a whiteboard. Relocate this money. Relocate this money to benefit the students. Shouldn't this be an easy decision? Why is there so much hesitation on improving the conditions for students in schools? You can bring us to the auditorium and tell us not to bully each other, not to fight, but that doesn't help. We need programs. We need programs after school so that we can go to. We need other stuff. Again, there should be no hesitation when it comes to improving the conditions of every student in school. There should be no pushback on making this a district where all students are given equal opportunities. We need people to talk to, and those people shouldn't have guns next to them. We need more counselors. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Anya.
Susan, Kara?
Good evening. My name is Susan Harris. I work at, I'm a resident of Kingston, and I work at the Kingston YMCA Farm Project with dozens and dozens of students from the high school. I'm going to start off reading excerpts from 2 letters, both students in 11th grade. And these letters were sent to the school board last summer and were resent again ahead of this meeting. So one student, a young woman who is a junior this year in Kingston, says, but first let's talk about the SRO at school. Why do we have them? I have no idea. I have never seen them do anything positive at school. They bring violence and unnecessary actions into the school. I'm very thankful that I have never had a bad experience with the SRO at school, and I hope I never do, because what I have seen is horrifying. It was my sophomore year, and I was in line to get lunch, and I turned around to see these 2 girls fighting. Of course, everyone is in the cafeteria gathered around them to see the fight, and then the SRO pushes everyone out of the way and breaks the girls up. Once they do, they grab them aggressively and drag them away. I was very confused why the SRO would grab them like that, and I could even hear one of the girls saying, ow. I thought that the SRO, hearing the girl in pain, would be more gentle with her, but he was not. When I go back to school, I want to see all students get treated the same and more diversity within the teachers. I want to go to school where I could talk to my guidance counselor if I'm having problems and I want to eat a healthy lunch. I want to see change. And then this is a letter by a young man who is a junior in Kingston High School. He says, I feel the SROs have never had a positive impact on me or my education. The SROs have never reached out to get to know me or offered support. The SROs are only here to deal with problems and discipline. Last year I had an incident with an SRO. I was falsely accused of something I did not do in the cafeteria. I was humiliated and surrounded by the SROs where they repeatedly called me a liar, and I was escorted out of the cafeteria and disrespected some more. I've never been in trouble, and I was scared of what they were going to do. Thankfully, a teacher intervened and helped calm me down and also let the SRO know that I was not guilty of what they were accusing me of after watching the security camera. I believe the money that is paid to SRO should go to programs to keep kids busy and off the streets. The money should be used for workshops on personal development, which will help all students be successful inside and outside of school. Money should also be given to the sports programs and after-school clubs. The money should also make sure school has enough computers for each student. During this pandemic, many families had to share one device with several siblings. Unfortunately, I've not had a positive experience with the SROs, and I believe they should not be in schools. After my incident with the SRO, my mother went to the school, and the SRO told her that he has a tough job and wouldn't know if I was a good kid or not. He just assumed I was a problem or a bad kid. Okay, I submitted online. I believe that we should invest in kids and counselors and therapists and mental health and positive things and not the school to prison pipeline, which the SRO sectors on. Thank you.
Is there anybody else here right now that has signed up to speak online that has not had the opportunity to yet? Okay, so we're gonna move into, well, let's set that up, I'm gonna play a short video.
Hi, my name is Kylie and I'm a student from JFK. Hi, my name is Kylie and I'm a student from JFK. The reason we need SORs in our school is because they keep us safe and keep us out of danger. The police department set up a tour around the Ulster County Police Department for me and my Girl Scout Troop 60006 with my friend Jamie. Did a tour around the police department. This is why we need SORs in our school. It's because they make sure we don't get in and out of the school without permission. And the reason they helped me is I learned a lot about information about them. They keep criminals in the jail cells so they don't hurt anyone. Bye.
I am reading these emails in the order that they were submitted. Let me know when we're out of time.
And also, when Karen is done, if there is no one else who enters the auditorium who is signed up to make a statement, that will be our time to adjourn, if no one else is here, once she finishes reading her statements. These are emailed statements or statements that were sent into the district. Yes.
Will there be a question and answer period?
That's not what this form is for.
Okay.
It's just a listening form, but thank you for asking. Yes.
If we missed signing up, can we still make a statement, or we had to do that ahead of time?
I think we'll have time.
Thank you.
Our first email is from Joseph Bikert. As a parent of 3 children in the Kingston City School District, I would like to voice my support of SROs in our schools. Our young people deserve a safe and secure environment where they can learn and interact with each other, and the SRO program is critical to ensuring that. It was not too long ago that many people were clamoring for more security in our schools when we had incidents like Columbine and Sandy Hook, where innocent children and teachers were gunned down in their classrooms and offices. The SROs provide more than security and can be the first interaction our young people have with law enforcement. This interaction can help build much-needed trust between our community and our law enforcement professionals that will lead to better interaction outside schools. They can mentor our children and point them in the right direction at a critical stage in their lives, as well as protect our kids against those who are only in school to disrupt. I hear some argue that this program promotes the school-to-prison pipeline. I would simply ask, what is your student or child doing in school or in the classroom that would lead them to a conflict with an SRO? That is the difficult question that few choose to ask because it leads back to the real problem in our society. Today, the world seems upside down. We vilify police and law enforcement based on the actions of a few. Our society lacks personal accountability because it is far easier to blame others than to accept responsibility for our own actions. Our conversations over dinner at night not only include discussions about science, math, and athletics, but now include conversations about gangs, shootings, and stabbings in our community. These are conversations that take place around our dinner table with our kids, and I often wonder if those students who may be in the so-called school-to-prison pipeline are having the same discussion with their parents over the dinner table. Our children deserve to be safe when they go to school every day. They need to know that when they walk through those doors, they can focus on learning and developing as young adults. They should be thinking about their next test or sporting event.
They should be thinking about what they want to be when they grow up, not if they will grow up. We need SROs in our schools, and our kids deserve the security and safety that they provide. Our next email is from Patrick Burke. My name is Patrick Burke, and I have a son who attends KHS and is a freshman. SROs are more than safety officers. They are like the big kids on campus. They are mentors, friends, and without SROs like Officer Kessick that was at Miller and Officer Harry Waltman, my son would have had a very difficult time in school. SROs are a vital source for students to turn to when in need. Safety of our students is top priority. I support SROs 100% in our schools, especially Kingston High School, which is in the heart of our city. Violence is on the rise in our city, and we need to ensure the safety of our children so they can get a solid education. Thank you. The next is from Ria and Don Checksfield. As a parent of 2 children and an educator in the Kingston district, I am writing to express my support for our SROs. Knowing there are armed, trained police officers present in our school buildings gives me peace of mind and feelings of safety and security for both my children and myself. We would be naive to think that the violence happening in our city will not eventually make its way into our schools. Having a police presence will deter criminals from committing crime in our schools and on school property, as well as encourage and foster positive interactions and relationships. There's a misconception that SROs are involved in student discipline. They are there as a preventative measure to respond to emergency situations, and they are not involved in disciplinary actions that do not constitute violations of the law. We as a city need to come together in support of our law enforcement officers and rise above violence and criminality to give our children a safe and productive future. The next is from Austin Cook. My name is Austin Cook, and I'm a longtime resident of Kingston, a business owner and parent of 5. I work as a senior crisis intervention counselor for the Rondout Valley School District. My job is to respond to and de-escalate any crisis in the high school building. Once the situation is calm and the student is safe, I contact the appropriate authority to handle the situation. I have been through over 20 years of on-the-job and classroom training, learning the best interventions when it comes to people in crisis, mental disabilities, and disorders. Police are not trained in this capacity. Police are trained to contain, control, and eliminate the threat. That is a much-needed position in our society, but not in our school system. Please take the time to do some research at how your neighboring school district is handling their students and children. Find out why Rondout has the ability to have 5 senior crisis intervention counselors in their district while Kingston has none. Due to the size of KCSD, having 1 or 2 crisis counselors will not be effective. There needs to be a team approach. I would recommend bringing in private security to work with the senior crisis counselors. The private security cannot be former police officers or corrections officers. They too must be trained in a therapeutic approach when it comes to our young people. The budget for the SRO program is over $400,000. That money can be reallocated to a much more mental health and therapeutic approach to crisis in our schools. The next is from Julie Donovan. I'm unable to attend the 524 meeting, but I would like it entered into a record that I fully support SROs in the KCSD schools. They provide the support and the safety that is necessary in today's unfortunate gun-filled society. Having a police presence in the schools can save precious time, therefore lives, should a bad incident occur. Any SRO should take the opportunity to become a role model and friend to the children they are there to protect. When I was a child and then young adult, I was taught to respect law enforcers. I was taught that they were my friend and that they were approachable. We need to get the two-way street of respect instilled back into both the student and the officer. What better place to do this than a school? Next is from Phillip Erner. As a resident of the Kingston City School District, as well as a candidate for Ulster County Legislator District 6, I support the removal of school resource officers, or SROs, from district schools. Although I don't have children in the schools, I have joined parents and neighbors in signing the Rise Up Kingston petition saying that we do not want police in our schools. We demand the removal of SROs and that the funds now used for police in the schools should be spent instead on mental health counselors and educational resources for students. As a white, cisgender, temporarily able-bodied male in his 40s, I may appear like a typical police officer. I have been and continue to be personally less likely to become a target of police violence. And it is because of this that I uplift the stories of those who say that having police in schools, rather than making the schools safer, creates a more hostile, inequitable, and even dangerous learning environment for students, especially for people of color. It feeds the school-to-prison pipeline, where we over-discipline, criminalize, and ultimately incarcerate our children. Is this what we want for our future? I say no. Please remove the school resource officers. Next is from Sarah Franklin. My name is Sarah Franklin, and I am a parent of twins who are currently in pre-K at GW Elementary School and KCSD, as well as a professional educator. I am writing to express my deep concern about the presence of SROs in Kingston's public schools. As evidence shows, the presence of SROs in schools does not prevent violence, armed or otherwise, from breaking out in the school setting. Rather, it leads to racially disproportionate disciplinary action toward non-white students, increasing their likelihood of ending up in the justice system, and further widening the systemic challenges facing students of color in our schools and society at large. Rather than using public resources to fund the presence of SROs, our district needs to funnel resources into educating teachers, administrators, families, and students in order to increase awareness of mental health issues that school-age children and youth face. And teachers and administrators need to be properly trained in how to identify students who may be struggling, as well as how to connect them with trained mental health professionals who can support those students and any other members of the school community who may be affected. As a parent and a deep believer in the need for gun reform, I strongly support the removal of SROs from Kingston Public Schools. Thank you. The next is from Kathy Hernandez. I am writing to support the SROs in the Kingston district. There is currently a rise in violence in the city of Kingston. The city is no longer a safe place, and I fear what could happen if the SROs are removed from our schools. No one ever thinks anything will happen in their school, but that is a chance we cannot afford to take. SROs can fulfill a variety of roles, preventing and responding to school-based crime, fostering relationships among law enforcement, educators, and youth, and helping to promote a positive school climate. If there is no SRO, it makes our school extremely vulnerable to those who intend to do harm. All security procedures in the world cannot replace the proactive intelligence that the SROs are gathering to stop attacks before they happen. Not having an SRO also removes the benefit of faster medical help. Last summer, a petition was submitted clearly showing that our community supports the SROs in our schools. This petition had signatures from our community members, unlike the other petition, which includes signatures from people who do not live in our community. I urge you to support and keep the SROs in our schools. Our children's safety depends on it. The next is from Sue Hogart. As a community member, I never have believed law enforcement belonged in schools. I have always thought well-trained crisis intervention workers were the answer. I believe small police forces enjoy the increase in their budgets to hire such officers more than they are committed to good school safety. After all, police do nothing, get trained in working in schools specifically. Now that this issue has finally been given the attention it should, I urge Kingston City Schools to become leaders in their community and reallocate resources and policies away from law enforcement to assist with difficulties in schools and move them to well-trained crisis specialists with knowledge about poverty, substance abuse, sexual abuse, and many other issues related to acting out in schools. This type of intervention will certainly allow more individuals to become functioning young adults in their community and avoid increased law enforcement contact with our disenfranchised youth. The next is from Val Nikos. I asked my son who attends KHS what he thought about the SROs in school. He said, I don't really see them do a lot. He thought about it and added, but I guess that's exactly why they're there. We need the SROs in our schools to maintain a safe environment for our kids. Thank you. The next is from Jasmine Otero Burt. Hello, I'm writing in regards to this meeting tonight. My husband and I have 5 children in the Kingston City Schools ranging from 1st grade to 10th grade. As an active parent, I feel it is necessary for keeping the SROs in our schools. I asked my 4 older kids how they felt about the SROs in school. They all responded with they feel safe and get along really good. I also asked them if they feel threatened and how would they feel if the Kingston City Schools got rid of the SROs. Their response, no way, we need them in school. If not, there would be much more fights and kids doing illegal things in school. The SROs make it so our kids can have a positive attitude and relationship with officers. They are a familiar face to them in school and in our community. I, as a mother, am scared for my kids even playing outside every day due to the violence in our community. So if school is where my kids feel safe, and I feel confident that my kids are safe there due to the SRO's presence, then I feel we need them to stay in our schools to protect our children. Our children need any positive role model available to them. I've seen the kids and have a blast with the SROs during dances, recess, conversations, and just a simple hello back when my kids see them in and outside of school. This is vital, so let's fight to keep these men and women in our schools. Thank you. The next is from Christina Picard. I am the mother of 2 young girls who will be entering school in the Kingston City School District this fall. My husband and I have lived in Kingston for 6 years and plan to be here at least until our kids are grown. Having moved here from Australia, a country which eliminated guns from their culture after just 1 mass shooting, school shootings are my greatest concern. Yet, I do not believe that the use of SRO in our schools is the solution to keeping them safe, and I strongly urge KCSD to reconsider their use. My concern is not just over having armed police sharing a space with our kids and the message that sends to them, or over police inappropriately being involved in disciplinary action, or in the ongoing racially disproportionate discipline record at KCSD. It is also concerning that the district seems to be ignoring the facts. The New York State Attorney General strongly urged the removal of SROs from schools, citing the many problems with them. An FBI report found that in almost all cases of school shootings studied, an armed police or security guard did not stop the school shooting. I would urge KCSD to follow the direction of Roundup School District and remove SROs from its school and replace them with a team of crisis intervention specialists. I would also urge the district to review every Town for Gun Safety's school shooting prevention plan, which does not recommend SROs in schools but clearly outlines suggestions other than police force. Thank you for your consideration. The next is from Elena Shea. I'm so sorry. My name is Elena, and I'm a Kingston community member who's concerned about the presence of SROs in the Kingston City School District. When I was a student in the neighboring school district of Onteora, I remember the presence of SROs as an unspoken threat. They made me think that my fellow classmates were violent and dangerous, or could become so. These officers helped contribute to an uncomfortable climate of surveillance and an erosion of trust, as if the administration was just waiting for us to do something wrong so that they could punish us. Given this experience and the resources I've read on how SROs contribute to the school-to-prison pipeline for young Black and brown students, it is my recommendation that KCSD have no relationship with the police force whatsoever, and that the SROs be removed from all school facilities. Instead of expending time and resources threatening our students, KCSD should be putting those resources toward providing more counselors and training staff in de-escalation. These are our children and the future of our community. We shouldn't be treating them as criminals in the making. Please keep SROs out of our schools and terminate all relationships with the police force as part of a first step towards ensuring racial justice in our school systems. Thank you for your time. The next is from Donna Skalkman and Rob Becker. We are residents of Kingston and the grandparents of a student. We are also a transracial family and have direct experience with the differences in treatment of our white and our Black sons growing up and attending public schools. Children should not feel watched. We believe that law enforcement has no place in schools. In our experience, they do not help make school environments feel safe and enable students to move around comfortably. Please look at other methods and programs that can better address the needs of all of our students. Thank you. The next is from Amy Shapiro. I am writing to express my desire to have SROs removed from the KCSD. I am a Kingston homeowner, a parent of a BIPOC male who attends George Washington, and an educator with over 20 years of experience teaching and leading in public and private schools in New York City and the Hudson Valley, at all levels from elementary to college. I have taught in schools with police and without them. I believe SRO should be removed from the KCSD because, as evidenced by the data the KCSD reported to the Federal Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, BIPOC students are being disproportionately disciplined in the school district. While the available data shows a slight improvement in the more recent statistics, any disproportionality is unacceptable. Additionally, a report out of the Justice Center draws the connection between school discipline and the school-to-prison pipeline by demonstrating that students who are suspended or expelled have a greater likelihood of contact with the juvenile justice system. Thus, the disproportionality in the KCSD has the potential to negatively impact the life trajectory of our BIPOC students. I have been greatly disturbed by the reporting in the local newspapers, where the superintendent was quoted as saying that in his 9 years leading the district, SROs had made just 5 or 6 arrests in the city schools. Why are we using arrests of children as a justification for keeping police in our schools? Why doesn't the school system know exactly how many arrests of children have been made? How many arrests of children is acceptable, since 5 or 6 is okay? As an alternative to SROs, the approximately $400,000 that is spent annually should be diverted to other programs. This can include hiring crisis intervention specialists, as the Roundup School District has done, as they scaled back on their SRO program. This should also include hiring more counselors, social workers, and additional training for all faculty and staff in restorative justice and de-escalation techniques. Finally, I would like to close with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. from his letter in a Birmingham jail. First, I must confess that over the last few years, I have been greatly disappointed with white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically feels he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a more convenient season. Thank you for your time and consideration. This is from a Bailey Middle School and Kingston High School mom. As a concerned parent, I am emailing in support of our SROs at the middle and high schools in the Kingston School District. I am unable to attend the meeting, but do want to send my highly positive thoughts and experiences with the officers. These officers provide invaluable assistance to the students, staff, and parents, and are trained to help the school in many ways, such as conflict resolution and active shooter training. It would be impossible to replace the services they provide with teachers, and I am sure they would not want to try to dissuade an active shooter from harming students. These type of situations require intense training, which SROs have and are taught to handle conflict so no one gets hurt. The SROs have not done anything to justify being removed. They are extremely helpful and extremely trustworthy officers and all around very caring people. My son had a minor issue one time in the past that turned into an extremely positive conversation, leaving my son feeling less stressed and better about life. This may not sound like a big deal, but to him it meant a lot. These types of interactions are more important now than ever due to the pandemic, not being in school, and unable to socialize as they did in the past with their friends. Depression is high right now, as I have experienced it firsthand in my family. I also feel with the huge increase in crimes and shootings in Kingston community, mainly shootings, It would put parents' minds more at ease having these officers present at the school. I know I feel more at ease knowing that they are there to protect our children and teachers. If we no longer had SROs in these schools, I would no longer feel comfortable sending my children to school. My children have also stated how having SROs in the schools helps them feel safe, which they need, especially when they don't even feel safe walking down the sidewalks of the city of Kingston. We all will need the help of an officer at some point in our lives. And if they were not present, there would be many tragedies. Please do not let these unprecedented times in our country cause you to make a quick decision that could have grave consequences. A decision you would quickly regret if something critical happened at one of our schools. My son looks up to these officers, enjoys seeing their smiling faces, and goes to school feeling safe because they are there in case anything bad does happen. Both my children have stated that having SROs in the school make them feel safe, especially during uncertain times like now. Please stop taking everything away from our children, especially now. They need to feel safe. Many are hurting. Please do not remove the SROs. The next is from Marianne Stasio. I'm writing to you in support of keeping the school resource officers in the Kingston City School District. I believe the vast majority of students feel much safer with these officers available within the schools. I feel besides that the officers often foster a good relationship with the students, which is carried over to the communities they live in. The students are in school to learn and pursue other activities such as art, music, and athletics, and they should be able to do this in a safe environment. The SRO provides a safety net for all our students. Please do not remove them or limit their presence in the Kingston City School District. The next is from Kim Williams. I'm writing this email in support of keeping school resource officers in the Kingston City Schools. My child is a graduate of Kingston City Schools and I am an employee of the district. I have seen on numerous occasions when the SROs have come together to present to the students at the elementary level a presentation on social media and internet safety. Officer Kurz, Officer Waltman, and Officer Killian. I have also been a witness to the SROs coming to the elementary schools and introducing themselves so the students going into the middle schools have a familiar face and someone to seek out if they need it. They have even done a question and answer session. If you have ever been to a sporting event at Dietz Stadium, you would see the students approach the SROs as well as other officers on assignment for security and chat with them. The youth weren't sneaking or avoiding them unless they were up to no good. At graduation, the number of students that would fist bump and even hug SRO Harry Waltman, now retired, would give you a small indication of the positive impact these officers have had on our youth. When there is a walking field trip, the SROs arrange security along the route to make sure all students are safe and accounted for and that the route is secure. Schools have to do their evacuation drill to an undisclosed location. It is the SROs that make sure the students, staff, and the route are safe. Schools also have SROs available during lockdown or lockdown drills, so that in the case of a real situation, we are all prepared and work together as a team. During the pandemic, when schools were doing the parades around the neighborhood to show the children we missed them, the SROs were driving right along with us and helping at intersections. Officer Killian is seen playing basketball with the students during recess in many Facebook posts. Officer Waltman and Officer Kurtz will dress up for Halloween and for a themed Halloween. These are just a few of the many positive impacts the SROs have had on our youth. I'll have two more. The next is from Deborah Fitzgerald. The question for me is really who wants the SROs out of the Kingston School District? Is it the parents or is it the students that feel uncomfortable? If it is the students, then there should be a survey asking them how they feel so they can express their concerns. If it is the parents, what interactions have they had with the SROs of the Kingston City School District to base their opinions on? Or is it based on the unfortunate stories we see on television or read from the papers? We are a small inner-city school district where our SROs do wonderful things with our students. As a building principal, I can tell you firsthand the importance of having an SRO in the building. In my 10 years of being a building administrator, I have not seen an SRO intimidate or discipline a student. What I have seen are the SROs building relationships, being mentors, and role models. We have many students in our building that choose and use the SRO as a go-to person. That is a person who a student can go to when they have a problem and need someone to talk to. I have had SROs give out their own personal cell phone numbers to students who may need assistance over the weekend for different issues. My SRO assists families who need help getting their sick child home from school because they have no car. In my building, I witnessed Officer Kurtz implement a police officer for a day to our students who are interested in being a police officer. We have fragile students with behavior problems who often find support with our SRO. They accompany staff and do wellness checks on our students who we have not seen in a while. Our officer does walk around the inside and outside of the building multiple times during the day, not to intimidate, but to say hello to our students, sometimes check on their states of mind, especially if it was a difficult weekend in the neighborhood. During their multiple walks around the building, they also check to make sure the exterior doors are locked and that the building is secure. Unfortunately, I do have aggressive adults that want to get into the building to confront staff and other students. It is a peace of mind to know that we have a police officer nearby to assist if we are unable to calm the adult down. Since this debate started, I have scratched my head wondering, do the students really feel nervous and intimidated with Officer Kurtz in the building? So while I was writing this response, I started asking students the question, should we have student resource officers, also known as police officers, in our building? The 25+ random students of all races that I asked today unanimously said that they should stay and that they do not feel intimidated. To end, not everyone is SRO material. You need the right person who can work and understand our students. The benefits that the SROs provide to our buildings far outweigh any of the negatives. Thank you for the opportunity. And our last is Terry Pettit. I believe that the student resource officers in Kingston City Schools serve a vital role in protecting and educating our children, and I do not want them removed. In light of the increase in gun violence in our city, it is surprising to hear that anyone is recommending the removal of SROs and putting our children at risk of becoming victims at school. Prior to the pandemic, I vividly recall the schools going into lockdown over a shooting close to the campus and having children in the school district. I felt less terrified for the safety of my children knowing that a trained officer was in the school with them. Not to mention this past December, a 12-year-old lost her life and a 9-year-old was wounded in gun violence on these city streets. In addition, just a few months ago, a 19-year-old Kingston High School student gained access to a firearm and ultimately died because of it. How long before a weapon is brought into the schools? The SROs promote the environment of safety, and with all my personal interactions with the officer at Bailey, he was always courteous and professional. The SRO is specially trained to protect our children as well as foster positive relationships between law enforcement and the youth of our community, which is extremely important in these current times. In addition to preventing and responding to school-based crime, they educate the children regarding bullying prevention and gang resistance. I have even seen the SRO step in to help navigate the horrendous parking and pickup situation at Edson and Bailey and direct traffic when drivers were ignoring the school staff and trying to drive through the crosswalk with children on it. Please keep this vital program and let the SROs continue to protect our children and keep our schools safe during these increasingly violent times.
Thank you, Karen. We did have a rule that all speakers needed to sign up, but we had 9 speakers who signed up and then didn't show. So we do have extra time, only one person in the audience. Yes.
Oh, a friend submitted an email statement at 3:08, but it was rejected. Would it be permissible to read that?
Our cutoff time was 3 p.m.
It wasn't posted, so we didn't know that.
Yes, it was. It was on the website.
So 3 o'clock?
Yep.
Well, this person, would it be okay to read that statement if she's allowed to speak?
I don't think the committee would have a problem with that. So,
We only do have 5 minutes left in our time. We are done at 6:30. I just want to put that out there.
I'll be brief. My name is Ria Don. I'm the mother of 2 Kingston High School students. I'm a current Kingston City School District employee. I have been for the last few years. I've worked in every single school in this district, and I presently work wherever they assign me. I have a unique perspective as a parent and an employee. I've spent a majority of my time working in the middle schools and the high school. I'm actually present in the schools. I support the SRO because I actually am present in the schools. I feel that many do not understand exactly what their duties are or what they actually do, and they don't even know who the school resource officers are. I do. I feel there's a lot of confusion, and I can tell you, personally, the SRO job is very specific. As you know, they're well trained, they know exactly what their responsibilities are. I've never seen an SRO discipline a student. I've not seen SROs roaming the buildings and are acting aggressively toward any student, but we know that they are there. I can tell you of one situation. There's a crime that I personally witnessed of an individual violating a restraining order toward a student. They were threatening them. The SRO appeared at once and came to the aid of the student, and that's just one situation that I have witnessed. I can also tell you what I've seen after school. I've seen students talking to the SRO, going to them for advice, interacting positively with the officers. Working in the school cafeterias, because of my job, I've actually interacted and spoken to diverse groups of students of all races in the high school and middle school cafeterias. I can tell you from speaking to these students, they feel safer. My children feel safer. The employees of the district feel safer. These students and employees, these are the voice. We can't ignore that there's an increase in crime in Kingston, and we can't forget the number of school shootings that have taken place across the country, and the pandemic has perhaps affected the memory of those incidents. I can tell you that students cannot learn when they do not feel safe. Removing the SRO will impact every single student and employee because this will diminish the safety of our school communities. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Perfect time, thank you. Please.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
You don't have to, we're not going to cut you off.
I know, but everybody should remember. So this is from Elizabeth Voigt. She's a Kingston resident and parent of a student at George Washington. She says, research by the FBI has shown that having police officers in schools doesn't stop school shootings in most cases. And the gun safety organization, Every Town for Gun Safety, does not recommend police in schools to protect against shootings. Instead of armed police in our schools, we should follow the research-based recommendations of Every Town for Gun Safety to protect our children from the tragic threat of a school shooting. Further, we know that the presence of police in schools often leads to children being referred to law enforcement, fueling the school-to-prison pipeline that disproportionately impacts students of color, especially Black students. While we have seen some improvements, KCSD continues to disproportionately discipline Black and Latino students. We must ensure police are not involved in student discipline in any way, remedy the discriminatory outcomes of our schools' disciplinary actions, and ensure that schools are not pipelines to prison. In addition, there are many students who are terrified by seeing an armed police officer in their school. Children cannot learn if they feel unsafe in their school environment. We must do everything we can as a community and school district to ensure our children's safety, create good learning environments, and stop the criminalization of young people of color. While some families may have had positive experiences with individual SROs, the SRO program is not the right approach for safety and education. KCSD should follow the recommendation of New York State Attorney General and remove police officers from our schools. Instead, we should fund evidence-based alternatives to SROs, including restorative justice programs and mental health services. KCSD should look to alternative models being implemented in the Rondout School District and around the country. Thank you.
Thank you. What is your first name again?
Malia?
And Malia becomes our last person to come to the mic tonight. So, in my concluding remarks, I want to thank all of our speakers and those who sent in comments. I also want to thank the SRO committee and the school board for their intense interest in this issue and work on this issue for our district family. This concludes our SRO forum, but remember, anyone can still send in their support or concerns for the SRO program via the form that's going to be on our district webpage. Everyone get home safe, and thank you so much for coming. You have no idea how much this committee really wanted to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.